You know what I love? Watching all these sour, bitter-ass white folks in my ultra-conservative MAGA community say, I didn't like the halftime show. It was the worst halftime show ever. Kendrick will never be as good as Drake.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel where we break down the biggest moments in the music, culture and controversy. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the latest trends and reactions. Today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about Super Bowl halftime performances in recent history. Kendrick Lamar's electrifying set at Super Bowl. From the jaw-dropping stage design to the fairy guest appearance, Kendrick gave us a show to remember, but as expected, not everyone is celebrating. MAGA supporters and conservative figures have a lot to say about it. Was this groundbreaking performances or just another controversy waiting to happen? We will break down the key moments, the political messages, and of course, the reaction from fans, critics, and even some celebrities. So grab a snack, sit back, and let's get into it. And don't forget, drop a comment below. Let us know your thoughts on Kendrick's Super Bowl halftime show.
MAGA is absolutely loving Kendrick Lamar's halftime show at the Super Bowl last night. It is exactly what white middle America was looking for, and I'm so glad that they got it. It was honestly a good show. But MAGA, they are just going to town on it, as you can expect, because it wasn't meant for them. But you've got people out here saying, you know, it wasn't my cup of tea. That's probably the politest one. And then you've got people like the Beetlejuice jerker and Lauren Boebert coming out here saying, I needed subtitles. I didn't understand what was going on. And then you, of course, have people like the diddler Matt Gaetz talking about, oh, this was a direct response for the gains that Donald Trump has made with black men. What? I mean, these people are just so out of touch. It wasn't meant for them. It was a political statement with so many subtleties on so many different levels, and it escaped, I'm sure I missed plenty, but it escaped so many people. It went right over their heads. And, you know, just the fact that he was able to put on that type of show with Mr. White Supremacist Donald Trump in the audience looking on, loved it. And he knew he had that opportunity. He even said so, that he had this opportunity and he was going to start the revolution. I mean, this is the perfect type of show, and you knew that it was going to be totally missed by the tone deaf white people, especially the boomers. Probably were on Facebook in like full droves, just being like, I didn't like that one. I didn't get it. Super Bowl, that was ridiculous. Because they just want to see Paul McCartney up here blasting out hits and things like that. But that's not what it's about. It's about culture and the NFL, bringing people like this to the stage. I mean, he's a huge artist, and to be able to have his political statement with Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam and everything else, like that was the perfect counterbalance to Donald Trump's white pasty ass up there in the suites or whatever he was in. So unfortunately for MAGA, they're just going to keep bitching about that halftime show, but oh well.
I think MAGA is most upset about Kendrick Lamar's performance because he made it simple enough that they could understand. So they were screaming DEI higher because their conception of DEI higher is that if you're black and qualified, you don't deserve a job. If you're white and unqualified, you do. And throughout this performance, Kendrick Lamar basically schooled them on so much. Just remember, these people are sitting in a stadium watching the NFL, which is 53% Black American, compared to 14.4% in the general population. And they're fine to watch that, to watch the physical labor of African Americans. And here you have a halftime show where the intellectual labor of African American is being showcased. And every element was something they should have probably understood in school, but he made it clear. Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam is clearly a dual reference to the expected minstrelly American society has to black men, and the fact that this country was built by black bodies in slavery. But he doesn't make it subtle.
Too reckless, too ghetto. Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up.
And he's not talking about Super Bowl, he's talking the game of America.
Do it 40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music.
All the promises of America, including in Reconstruction, 40 acres and a mule to anybody who had been enslaved, are constantly being reneged. And yet African Americans are playing the game of American succeeding. And it is not just for white America, but all of America. The symbolism of both this game and the prison. We've locked ourselves into this game. We put ourselves in a win-lose state, and we could all lose because we could have started, but we chose to be divided. Now remember, the American flag is not just propaganda. It is often used as a critical tool in discussing the country we're in. And listen, this is a country that is not always going to march in the same direction. Notice here, the blue shirted people are not here. So you see where he's going to perform is just a segment of the overall community. And why is that? Why are we divided? Like fools, we focused on the wrong thing. But
The revolution about to be televised. You picked the right time for the wrong guy.
And while the flag is divided, while the nation is divided, change is still coming. They cannot stop it. So it is the end. Game over. The revolution came.
Hey, white people, like front and center, come here. I gotta talk to you. You're embarrassing us. You're embarrassing us. That halftime show was epic. It was a protest. It was art. It was rich in symbolism and lyrical genius. But you don't want to see that. And look, I know I'm setting myself up to catch a lot of heat for this. I really don't care. I'd rather it come to me than a lot of other people out there. So let's get going. There is nothing inherently wrong with disliking a certain type of music or a certain style of performance. You cannot like a certain type of music all you want. I'm not saying you have to think that Kendrick Lamar's music is the best thing since sliced bread. I myself don't personally listen to Kendrick Lamar. I know who he is because I'm a high school teacher, and if I don't know some of these things, then I'm going to get roasted on the daily, more than I already do. But it's not like I'm jamming out to him myself because I don't personally love just like pure rap. It's just not my favorite genre. But I'm also like, smart enough to know that there's a lot packed into some of these lyrics, more than you think and more than you're even able to understand on a surface level. Because if you're not used to listening to it and hearing what they're saying, myself included, it can be hard to even understand them. And that halftime show was just chock full of symbolism and clues and like little nuggets of Black culture. At the end of the day, we have to recognize that they have a culture that is unique to them and cannot be replicated and cannot be fully understood by us unless we are willing to do a whole lot of work and listening to what they say. Now I've digressed because I'm onto culture and that's not even what I intended to be talking about right now. What I was going to be talking about is the show itself, okay? Samuel L. Jackson, Uncle Sam, telling him to calm down, to get it together, to not be so hyped up and ghetto. It's literally the message of America to Black people all the time. Calm down. Why do you have to be so extra? Why do you have to act like that? Why can't you just be more like us? They want, by they, I mean white America, seems to want every other culture to assimilate with us, not be who they are. We want to say, oh, we love everybody. We're colorblind. No, you're not. No, you're not. And the comments about last night's halftime show show me exactly. That's all the proof I need. You ain't colorblind. And you never will because it's not possible. And it's okay to not be colorblind. In fact, it's preferable to acknowledge all the diversity and the differences that are out there because that's real life. This performance, beyond just the visual imagery of the American flag comprised of hooded Black dancers, divided with Kendrick Lamar right in the middle, speaking to that division, right? Beyond Serena Williams coming out and doing her crip walk on stage, okay? Beyond the setup of the stage as one, a prison yard, and two, like a game, like a video game with the buttons, and very Squid Game-esque as well. Did you catch that? At one point I said, is this emulating Squid Game? And my husband was like, I don't know, maybe. And I think it was. If I'm wrong, let me know. We're talking about Squid Game. We're talking about the rich pitting the poor against one another so they kill each other off and they get to watch and enjoy it. Yeah, that was the whole thing. Oppression is multifaceted. racism is systemic. Just because we are 50 plus years past the civil rights movement does not mean racism is gone. It is just changing shape. And a lot of the comments I'm seeing from folks are just overt racism. It's not an opinion on music. You're being racist. And I know you don't like to hear that because it makes you uncomfortable. But racism doesn't have to be dropping the hard R. And it also doesn't have to be intentional. You don't have to mean to be racist to actually be racist. You could be racist accidentally, but it's still your responsibility to fix it. It's still your responsibility to do the work to figure out what it is you're doing wrong. It's your job to listen. I have a responsibility to listen. I cannot speak for a community I don't belong to, and I don't intend to do that. I'm talking to you, people like me. We have a job here. Our job sometimes is to sit down, shut up, and listen. I know y'all don't like that. I know that makes you super uncomfortable because I used to be the same way. I did. So I get it. But at some point, we're going to have to acknowledge that not everybody out there has to be like us. Not everybody out there needs to have the same preferences as us. And I know you're going to turn around and say, well, then I can say I don't like that because we don't all have to be the same. You can say you don't enjoy something. It's not your preference. You know, you didn't really like it or you didn't really understand it without being hateful. Without saying things like worst halftime show ever. Or that's not real music, which I've seen all over Facebook this morning. Oh, I couldn't understand a word they said. Was they even speaking English? Here's the thing. You can say, hey, wasn't my cup of tea, but I can appreciate the artistry. But when you talk about a performance of that magnitude, the way that you are, one, you're showing your implicit biases, okay? You're showing that systemic racism.
You didn't like it?
I did not like it. I think that was a rap concert, and I think he is a good rapper and a good performer. That set list is insane for the Super Bowl. Two things. One, still like so heavily Drake. Serena Williams being out there doing 2 of your diss tracks. I think that should be more of like your moment and like a culmination. Let me start by saying this. I know that Kendrick Lamar does not care about this. People like he really cares about rap and black culture, and those people are happy. Mm-hmm. So, you know, as a white guy and middle America, and they're like, they don't care. We don't care that you don't like it. But then I think you also open yourself up to criticism where it's like, this is a show where there are people who have transcended your niche and your genre and have so many hits and can do such a performance that every age and every gender and every race walk away being like, whoa, that was crazy. I think rap fans walked away going, that was awesome. I think that's falling short in the Super Bowl. I also don't like that. That to me felt like people were waiting for one song.
Yeah.
And he even teased it throughout. Usually people have 10 songs that you're like, this could be the opener, this could be the closer, this could be like... Usher was leaving #1 hits off of his set list.
Yeah.
When you have like one song that you're building up to and teasing, and I know it's the song of the moment, but it's also just like, that felt like one-hit wonder-ish to me.
Welcome to the Reconstruction. Are we going to F it up this time? It was not lost on me, the first sitting president who ever attended a Super Bowl, one who was running basically on the idea that we need to go back to America where certain people felt heard and really checked in with people who saw themselves with the Confederacy, was being held in New Orleans, the wealthiest Confederate city and an important port for Confederate supplies, but also basically an emblem of many of the failures of Reconstruction. After all, Katrina showed how this city maintains a lot of its class-based infrastructure along racial lines. And in Reconstruction, America had 2 choices. There was one, a South that was crumbling. It had literally been burned in different parts. And it had lost its free labor force. So its economy was about to shift ideally. But much of the country decided normalcy is what we need immediately. And some people thought reparations would actually lead to normalcy quickly. After all, here is a group of people who have shown themselves to be very productive. If we give them a little, they will work for a little. Remember, reparations was not altruism. But a larger group of people feared the poor white Southerners might realize enslaved people and their descendants aren't the enemy, but in fact the people with the power. And so in order to keep poor white Southern people in the position of standing up for power, they both placated them with this idea that while they're traitors, they're still Americans. It's okay. But also reneging on reparations for the formerly enslaved people. And as with any crisis, people profit. And so you see the rise of the robber barons out of Reconstruction. Some people get super, super wealthy. You have an enormous wealth disparity, though not quite as big as our wealth disparity right now. And that's the thing. A lot of our current society is basically living off of the failures of Reconstruction. We live in a divided populace for a reason. And a lot of that reason comes out of Reconstruction. The best for the wealthy in America is not the best for the majority of America. Because the wealth in the United States historically has been in the hands of few. And Reconstruction focused on those people. And that system is still in place. And as we watch robber barons basically control our government while not being elected, we could transform in a way we didn't in Reconstruction. But it would require going against your self-interest for the greater good. Do you think we're capable of that?
You know what I love? Watching all these sour, bitter-ass white folks in my ultra-conservative MAGA community say, I didn't like the halftime show. It was the worst halftime show ever. Kendrick will never be as good as Drake. Just be quiet. The same reason you think Kendrick will never be as good as Drake is the same exact reason that you think LeBron James isn't the greatest of all time. Because the truth is, you want Kendrick to just shut up and perform and entertain, just like you wanted LeBron James to just shut up and play basketball. You see, Drake's always been an agent of the system. He's a colonizer just like you. Use the culture for your own personal gain, take the parts of the culture that you like, and then discard the rest. And what's sad is that we're in 2025, and the vast majority of these poorly educated white folks, especially in my community, have no idea that they are pawns upholding the system. They are agents of the system, when people like Kendrick Lamar is the revolution. Because the truth is, since the birth of this nation, black folks have always been the entertainment for white folks. But as long as they're dancing to the beat that the white folks want them to. But when you got people like Kendrick Lamar with his creative genius not tap dancing to the beat of what white folks want him to do, it's a beautiful thing. So stay mad.
Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show was racist. There wasn't a single white performer. I thought you wanted this country to be a meritocracy. That wasn't a performance based on merit. It was a DEI performance. The Super Bowl should have hired someone like Kid Rock to perform. Kendrick Lamar has won multiple Grammys and a Pulitzer Prize. What qualifications does Kid Rock have? It's not about qualifications. That's what a meritocracy is. It's about the children. Imagine how all the white kids who were looking forward to the Super Bowl halftime show feel after not seeing themselves represented in it. White people are already overrepresented in positions of power, in those who hold the most generational wealth, in our corporations, in media. I'm pretty positive that white kids will not feel like their skin color will prevent them from doing certain things just because they weren't represented in the Super Bowl halftime show this year. Plus, I thought you hated representation. You freaked out when Ariel in The Little Mermaid was played by a black actress. You're a race traitor. Whatever, Grandpa. It's time for you to take your meds and go to bed.
That was the worst Super Bowl halftime show I've ever seen, and Kendrick fans are already saying that, oh, this is a race thing. Nobody was saying this about Beyonce's halftime show. Because Beyonce's halftime show, unlike Kendrick's, had amazing choreography. Kendrick's choreography was boring. It had amazing costume design. Kendrick's costume design was boring. It had amazing set design. Kendrick's sets were boring. And Beyonce performed a wide list of songs that actually resonate with a large portion of the US population. You can't say the same thing for Kendrick's performance. Beyonce's performance was also musically impressive. You can also not say the same thing about Kendrick's performance. I think a lot of artists nowadays think that if their art has political messaging in it, then it doesn't have to be impressive on a surface level, like musically and aesthetically, visually impressive. And that's just not and never will be true, especially for the Super Bowl halftime show. People want a halftime show that is both visually and musically impressive. And Kendrick's performance was neither of those things.
40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music.
I also am shocked at how many people didn't know about 40 acres and a mule. So let's take a moment to talk about those things. Let's talk about 40 acres and a mule, the Homestead Act, and the 13th Amendment, because yes, they all tie together. The Homestead Act was enacted in 1862, where they wanted to take the American land and be able to cultivate it for use for the people. And in order to do that, they had to find the people who actually wanted to live in this barren land. And in order to do that, they gave out land to people who would run and claim the land. The Homestead Act made sure that we were able to cultivate the United States of America, use up the land that we have, bring in more people, boost the economy. So what they did was they gave 160 acres to a claimant of land if they lived on it and cultivated it for 5 years. And if you weren't capable of doing that and happened to have a little pocket change, well, then within 6-month period, you could pay $1.25 per acre. Now, here's something that they didn't bank on in 1862 when they created the Homestead Act was the 13th Amendment that came out in 1865. There was also the 40 acres and a mule in 1865. So that took the folks who were working the plantations, who are now freed, and were taking that land and giving it to those people. You work the land, you can now have it. We have taken over Confederate America and we are giving it to the people who have put their hands in it. And that was put together by General Sherman. Well, you see, Lincoln was assassinated. Now you have Lincoln passing away. They're like, oh, we don't have to give land to the people. But then on top of that, there was this loophole in the 13th Amendment where it said that nobody could be enslaved. Well, unless you're a prisoner. I mean, if you're in prison. So what America was doing was taking these immigrants from other countries who were white and allowing them to establish their home and territory with this Homestead Act. And then they were taking the people who lived here who were black and removing everything from them, every opportunity, using the freeing from slavery as a tool to put them into prison to enslave them once again. And this is where I leave you a cliffhanger, because if you want to learn more about the 13th Amendment, I will be covering 13th from Netflix on my YouTube channel, Lesbian Speaking, this week. So make sure you go on and subscribe and you can learn more.
You know, this post got 5 million likes here. This proved that the only way you all could come together is if you have something to hate. In this case, it's Drake. The only way you all could come together is if you have something to absolutely loathe. It says more about you than the person you hate. It says everything about you. The fact that you only come together. For example, the Orange Man. You hate him. You hate him. And you show it in the comment sections. You're not coming together to cause any real change. You're coming together to vent, to give your little 2 cents. And you know what? Nothing's gonna change from that. Hate doesn't change anything. I know you feel all high and mighty and self-righteous, and you feel the energy, hateful energy of the rest of the group in the comments. Like, yeah, we're banding together because they not like us. They not like us. They not like us. It's absolutely laughable.
Watching white people crash out over Kendrick's performance at the Super Bowl halftime show is yet another reminder to mind our own damn business, keep to ourselves, and rest, black women. Because what we're really witnessing isn't just outrage, it's privilege throwing a tantrum. And that's the thing about privilege. It creates a psychological and social state of dependency that mirrors extended childhood. When you've spent your whole life being centered, catered to, and shielded from consequences, you don't really develop skills to deal with reality when it stops revolving around you. So when the revolution's televised, we got white people losing their shits. But we all know that the system was built to keep them comfortable. And our presence alone makes them very uncomfortable. And even then, instead of growing up and educating, here they come rage baiting, trying to get our attention, pulling us back into their dependency, whether it's crying over a halftime show or baiting us into explaining to them song by song why Beyonce deserves to win Album of the Year. As if they can't just educate themselves. But she sure got a whole lot of views. It's all the same damn game. They can't survive without our labor, emotional energy, and our expertise. They stir the pot, waiting for us to step in and do the work for them. They just sweet little babies. They just babies. Let them cry. Let them spiral. Let them process their own discomfort. We rest. We protect our energy. We keep our vibrations high. Baby, we focus on ourselves because goddamn, so far, this Black History Month is fucking amazing. I am so proud to be Black!
You know I don't do sports. You know I don't do football, so I wasn't watching the game. But listen, I think today Donald Trump is going to sign an executive order banning black people from halftime. Because you remember last week we were talking about whether the NFL was capitulating to Trump by removing the term end racism from the end zone. Yeah. Boy, did they not capitulate to Trump. When I saw Samuel L. Jackson dressed as a black Uncle Sam introducing Kendrick Lamar, who then had like an entire formation of all black people making a U.S. flag. Listen, this much I know. All the black people on my feed were like, ooh, this is blackity black black. And all the racists who somehow get in, man, were they hopping mad. So if the racists are mad, I am happy as a clam. Huge celebration of New Orleans, and you can't celebrate New Orleans without celebrating black culture. Yeah. Welcome to Black History Month, you all.
Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance is easily one of the most talked about in recent history. He didn't just put on a show, he made a statement, and expected reactions have been split. Some people loved it, calling it revolutionary, while others, especially MAGA supporters and conservatives, are outright furious. So let's break it all down. What happened, what it meant, and why it's causing such an uproar. Kendrick took the stage at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans and immediately set the tune. From the stage design to his music choice, everything about his performance felt international. He didn't just run through a medley of his hits, he crafted a performance that told the story. One of the most striking parts of the show was the inclusion of power imaginary, including references to political and social issues that Kendrick has addressed throughout his career. There were over 80 dancers, elaborate choreography, and a mix of visuals that some say symbolize terms of resistance, racial identity, and power struggles in America. Samuel L. Jackson made a surprise appearance, dressing as a model-day Uncle Sam, which people immediately connected to Kendrick's ongoing critique of American politics and systemic issues. That moment alone sent a conservative commentators into a frenzy. And let's not forget the guest appearance by SZA and even Serena Williams, who added even more weight to the performance. But the most controversial part is performance of Not Like Us. This was the moment that really set people off. Not Like Us is widely believed to be a diss track aimed at Drake, but Kendrick performing it at the Super Bowl added another layer to its meaning. The stadium crowd chanted "A minor" in unison. That was wild. People online are still debating whether this was just about the rivalry with Drake or if it was meant to call out a deeper issue in the music industry and culture. But here's where the backlash really picks up. Many conservatives and MAGA supporters saw this as an attack, not just on Drake but on American culture as a whole. There were immediate complaints that Kendrick was using the Super Bowl as a platform to push divisive message, which is ironic considering how much past halftime shows have done the same thing in different ways. Right after the performance, Twitter exploded. MAGA supporters, conservative commentators, and even some politicians wasted no time in slamming the show. Matt Gerson tweeted something along the lines of the NFL used to be about football. Now it's just another platform for lefties propaganda. Nora Bobet joined in too, basically saying the halftime show was a disgrace and had no place in American sports. And let's not even get started on the talking heads at Fox News. They spent hours dissecting the performance, claiming it was an anti-American and pushing a whole agenda. One of the funniest reactions came from Anna Navarone on The View. She joked that Trump might actually try to ban black performers from future Super Bowl halftime shows after this. And honestly, seeing how MAGA reacts to black artists using their platform to speak on issues, you can't say the joke was too far-fetched. But beyond the usual outrage circle, there was another angle of criticism, one that had more to do with who performed rather than what was performed. This is where things get even messier. A lot of New Orleans fans felt Kendrick Lamar wasn't the right choice for this Super Bowl. Why? Because it was in New Orleans and many people expected a local legend like Lil Wayne to headline. And it turns out even the NFL was second-guessing its choice. Reports stated surfacing that some legal officials felt they should have gone with Lil Wayne instead, believing he would have been a safer, more crowd-friendly option. Lil Wayne himself responded saying he was disappointed he wasn't picked, and some of his fans are straight up angry. Now here is the thing, if the NFL really wanted to avoid controversy, picking Wayne wouldn't have changed much. Sure, he might not have been a politically charged as Kendrick, but there still would have been debate over why the league didn't pick someone less hip-hop or more mainstream. It's the same old argument every time a black artist headlines, people complain no matter who it is. What this really comes down to is the ongoing culture war in America. Every time a high-profile black artist uses their platform to say something deeper than just entertainment, MAGA reacts as if it's an attack on their identity. It happened when Beyoncé performed at Super Bowl with Black Panther imagery. It happened when Eminem took a knee in 2022. And now it's happening with Kendrick Lamar. But here's the reality. This performance hasn't going anywhere. The NFL knows that controversy drives engagement. They saw what happened when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. They know that halftime performances spark debate and that keeps the Super Bowl in a conversation long after the game is over. Kendrick Lamar did exactly what we expected him to do. He used his artistry to make people think, and whether you loved it or hate it, one thing's for sure, this halftime show won't be forgotten anytime soon. So where do you stand? Was Kendrick's performance powerful and necessary, or do you think it was too much for a Super Bowl stage? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, that is a wrap on Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show and all the wide reaction it sparked. Whether you saw it as a powerful statement or just another controversy in the culture war, one thing for sure, this performance is going to be talked about for a long time. So what do you think? Was Kendrick's show a masterpiece, or do you think it went too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear what you have to say. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on our next deep dive. We have got more content coming your way. So stay tuned. Until next time, take care and keep the conversations going.